Hey everyone, welcome to another Worth a Second Chance community check-in. Today I am very excited and honoured to be joined by Will Smith, who is not the famous actor, but who is, he probably uses all the time and is sick of it, who is, I think, someone even more awesome, who is working with young people in Tasmania as both a police officer with the Tasmanian Police, but also with JCP, which is an organisation that Will has founded. And also this year he won Young Tasmania of the Year. So he's your classic amazing overachiever doing a million things, but has some incredible insights to share with us today. So thank you so much for being here, Will.
Thank you very much for having me, Jess. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak with you.
No, the pleasure is all ours. And so I'm going to dive straight into it and just ask you, because I think everyone listening will be really interested in this question, but I also personally am, what brought you to this place of working with young people, being so passionate about it? I know from our previous chats that it takes up every minute of your day, it feels like. So, and your passion really comes through. So, what brought you to this place of supporting young people and being so passionate about it?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. You're right. I am very, very passionate about the work that I do. I love to do my everyday life. I wake up, I'm always excited. I beat my alarm. Like that's passion for me. So I think looking back on where that started, I recall in year 9, I sat in a school assembly, and I probably wasn't the best student at school. I wasn't very academically smart, but I did enjoy going, probably more for the social aspect. I remember sitting in this assembly and the assembly was about engaging in some volunteer work. And I was at the back sort of flicking some paper with some of my friends and other people. And as a joke, one of my friends actually signed me up on the sign-in sheet to do some volunteer work. After an argument with my parents and a conversation with my teachers that it wasn't actually me that signed up, I was pretty much forced to go to this week-long camp during my summer holidays. In the week-long camp, I was partnered up one-on-one with a young person. And despite being young myself, grade 4, 5, 6 kids, being mentored by grade 9, 10 kids at the time was something when I went away, although I just didn't want to be there. I didn't want to be a part of that environment. I came back from it and I was just really, really inspired. I thought this is something that I want to be passionate about because I am good at it and I felt like I had a genuine impact. And from there, it just grew. So I continued going back and going on youth programs in a voluntary role. I ended up leaving school and I was developing youth programs both in Victoria and Tasmania. And then the youth programs continued to lead on then into developing my own concepts, programs that were community initiatives to statewide initiatives to involving Tasmanian Police and other organisations in what we were doing. To then the point of trying to impact some of the most at-risk young people in the world in the Middle East, and then back here to Tassie, where I then decided to found my own company running youth programs here in Tasmania. So it's been a bit of a journey up and down, but I think over the time I've been really trying to grasp what works well and what doesn't work well, and get out of all the different programs we run and all the different things that we've been doing, trying to grab out those elements that work really well, and then found a program that for me is genuine and has a really lasting impact.
I love that. I think it's so important to always be open to new ways of doing things and just constantly evolving and changing and innovating in this space. So I love that you've taken all that knowledge that you've gained and implemented into JCP. Would you mind telling us a little bit about what JCP is?
Yeah, 100%. So JCP is a youth leadership company. So we're a company that provides youth leadership content in schools to businesses and also to just general people, so community groups, councils, wherever we can deliver youth leadership content during, I suppose, the times of a school day. We go out and we deliver as much youth leadership content as we possibly can. That content is based towards the fact that we believe leadership is purely action alone. So you don't have to have a title. You don't need to be a school captain or a house captain or part of the student representative group to just be a leader. Leadership is about everyone actually doing something. So the quietest person in a group can be the strongest person based on their actions alone. So outside of the seminars and the content that we deliver in relation to leadership, our core work and what we spend the majority of our time doing is working with at-risk and vulnerable young people. So we take on young people who are considered to be at risk of youth offending or at-risk negative behaviours or engaged in some type of negative, negative community activity. We want to work with young people who are disengaged and who are having a negative impact on the people or the community around them. So when we engage with these young people, we don't want to, we're not about reforming them. We're not about reforming youth offenders and focusing on youth offending. We're not about getting these kids back to school and getting high attendance rates. All we do is we put these young people through a youth leadership program. That youth leadership program is called BEAST, which is this logo here. And everything that happens because of the program is just a byproduct. So we have 0% offending rates. We have high school attendance rates at school. We have kids that are genuinely achieving massive, massive things as part of the program. I'll give you an example. We recently graduated 10 boys from the program who all entered under that criteria list that I read out. Out of the 10 boys that entered into the program, 7 of them graduated as student leaders. 3 of them created a program called Give Back where they gave out $50,000 across the state. 3 boys were nominated as finalists for the state volunteering awards because of their mentorship of other kids in the state. Some of the boys were awarded Trailblazer Awards. They've been recognised by the Tasmanian government. Some boys have developed bullying campaigns or other campaigns within their school, and they all positively contribute back to their communities. Most of the boys are all engaged in sport or a positive community activity. We grab young people from the back of the pack, and we don't just put them in the pack and sort of put an ordinary environment around them. We grab these kids from the back of the pack and we put them right at the front. We make them some of the biggest youth leaders in the state because they have that skill set. Once we deliver that youth leadership content, we find that they just sort of step up into that role. Everything else becomes a byproduct of it. So JCP, we're all about leadership. So for me, and sort of the last decade of working with young people, I found that young people respond really, really well to leadership. It's just that one term. Once you put them in a position of leadership and you put them in a position of where they can start to control other people and other elements in their life, their control over themselves starts to come as well. So it can be really powerful.
I love that, because I was going to say, what do you think it is about leadership? But I think that idea of control and agency over your life and the life of others, and probably being trusted by someone for the first time, potentially, to achieve these things and to go out.
Yeah, 100%. Like one of the first things that our young people have to do is they have to positively contribute back to their community. Once they have that level of engagement and control of, I can actually add value to other people's lives, they start to value themselves a lot more. So once they see that they can provide value, they get value back. And that's what's important. And that's what leadership is about. Leadership is only about positive action. So, if I'm a young person, I can stand up in front of a crowd and I can spitball as many, great quotes and great memes as I want and inspire a crowd. But if I then leave that stage and I go and do something that doesn't align with what I say, then I'm not a leader. I'm just someone that's really just has a skill or a strength at communication. So our young people, whether they're good communicators or not, it's irrelevant. They're leaders purely by their actions alone. If they can go out and have a positive impact on the community, they get value from that. And also the community gets value from it as well. So everything becomes a byproduct of that value.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And that's so incredible that you can sort of put all these beautiful things onto one bracket that's very simple and digestible. Because I think as you're speaking, I'm like, there's so much in there about accountability, community, connection, and feeling important and valuable. But just to simplify it down to something like leadership, I had never thought about it before you posing it like. I'm wondering, I imagine over your career you've worked with some amazing young people and have heard some amazing stories and sort of walked alongside them. I'm wondering, what are these young people been able to teach you along the way? And what have you taken away from it?
Look, to be honest, it's selfish in a way what I do because I get so much from it. So, and people are very quick to pat me on the back and say, oh, well done, and I spend a lot of time with young people and we spend a lot of time traveling and making sure that these kids are off the street. And a lot of people are quick to recognize that. But your question's good because these young people provide me with so much value. I'm sitting here on a Friday afternoon now and, you know, over the course of this week, I've probably connected with close to 400 or 500 young people through not only seminars, but our at-risk work. And you can sometimes sit here and just think like, whoa, I'm exhausted, you know, but you also sit here and you just think of the value that you've got throughout the week. I think the young people that we work with on the Beast program, you know, they're with us for a minimum of a year, 10 to 12 months, and then they step into youth leadership roles with us. So those graduates are now moving into a 2-year phase. I think I draw so much more value from them, just purely because of their growth. These young people have strengths that I don't have. Their resilience and their ability, one, to be able to connect and relate to things is just, it's really inspiring. Prior to starting JCP, there's 3 boys in particular that I was communicating with, and are really, you know, part of the inspiration of creating JCP. Those 3 boys are just unbelievable young humans. You know, when I first met them, they're 13, 14, 15 years old. And they're still now some of our biggest mentors within the organisation. And they're just 3 boys that are genuine. You know, there's nothing special in relation to what they want out of it. They don't want to draw any value out of it than any other kid would, but they're just genuine. And I think for me, that's my one drawing point. The one thing that I get from the young people I work with is that if I'm genuine to them, they're genuine back, and they've actually taught me how to be more genuine. And yeah, I think for me, I actually base our whole organisation on genuine impact. As you know, there's organisations across the country that work, and our role is to provide an experience to young people. And I just don't stand for that. And I understand why we do it. And I think it's actually necessary to provide experiences. But for me personally, I think we need to go a step above and provide a genuine impact. Taking a young person out of their environment, teaching them core values and teaching them a good way of life, and then putting them back in their environment is called an experience. Because we take them out, we spend such an amazing time with them, and we think these kids are amazing. We then put them in their environment, and then we question why they do the wrong thing. We say, but that kid's got so much potential, he's not using it. Well, we can't expect them to use it. Genuine impact is about being able to take a young person out of their environment, teach them these values and skills, put them back in their environment, and then continue to work with them there to implement those values and skills in their environment. It's not good enough to take them out. It might be for 3, 4, 5 months, 18 months. You can teach them as much as you want, but we are only as good as the top 5 people we spend the most time with. So when these young people go back, they're just influenced by those same influences. Our role on the Beast program is we take over their top 5. So we influence not only the young person, but their families and their friends as well. And that's what's powerful. And I think that's where we draw our success on, is the fact that whilst we're a youth leadership program, the content is for not just for young people, but it's also for those that they're surrounded with as well. Otherwise, we're just failing them. We're providing them with this fun, engaging experience that they love, and then we're just ditching them at the end. And that's not what this is about. We have to get them to show leadership in their own environments. If they're not willing to do that, or if they can't do that, then maybe we need to change their environment first before they engage in the program. Does that make sense?
Oh, so much sense. I think what you said about setting them up to fail is very true, which can then kind of lead to that cycle of, it was me, the individual, not being good enough, plays back into that narrative of not being capable. But really, they were being set up to fail because the circumstances weren't allowing for them to thrive in that way. And that's such a good point. And like it would be the most challenging time for them bringing that experience back. And so It makes so much sense that they need that constant touch points and support to help them navigate that and keep them on track and keep them engaged. And I just think it's wonderful that you're thinking like that, but you have that holistic approach and ongoing. I think a lot of the programs that I know of might be a year, might be 16 months, and then there is no further contact, and that young person is put onto another program, or they're not eligible for a program anymore. And so all this good work is potentially reversed or compromised because that there's no one around. So I think that's so wonderful. I'm wondering, the young people you work with, have you noticed any like key themes that's going on for them, I guess, with their families, their circumstances, or is each young person quite different?
Oh yeah, I think each young person is very different. You know, I don't think I can put a finger on and say that, you know, every young person that we work with is, you know, has that same core problem or issue that we can jump on. And I think that comes back to having a genuine impact is understanding the personality traits of every young person, because the personality traits is what guides their decision-making process. Their thoughts, actions, and opinions are influenced based on what their personality is and whether they're easily influenced, whether they're not, who they are as a person and what they stand for. So part of the program for us is one, understanding that, but getting them to understand that too. What are their core values? What do they stand for? What's their vision? When they impact the community around them, what do they actually want to impact? What's their message that they want to put across? These are some of the core things that we initially work on with a young person when they start engaging with us. And every young person has a different answer to all of those questions. For some young people, it's really important to be honest. For others, it's not. So for some young people, loyalty is a big thing, but for others, it's not. So, and the same with vision. Some kids have massive visions, and some kids just have, mediocre visions. They're very set on where they want to go. So I think that's dictated a little bit by their environments. But when you give them an opportunity to grow that, it's quite powerful. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it sounds like what you're saying is I was tapping into like what makes them tick, what drives them, what are their values, because every young person is so different, and often we don't even get the opportunity to have that discussion, I think, around like what we value and what drives us. But I think from a community perspective, that the community, say if they are engaging in behavior that is harmful to the community, they're like, well, we don't want that. That's a risk, right? So it's about getting them to think like, what do they want to contribute to the community? Why aren't they contributing to the community? Like all those questions that I think we fail to ask sometimes, which is like, no one wants to go around isolating themselves or creating harm. Doesn't feel very good. It's not our natural instinct. And so coming to sort of that root of like what's driving that behavior and how can we switch our mindset, it's obviously been so powerful. But I just love that approach about values and coming back to drivers of young people and tapping into that, because they are so powerful and capable of creating and contributing so much, as you've seen, and as like all those young people are setting examples. And we often maybe let them down by not realizing their capacity or what they have to offer, really. So I'm just such a big fan of all of it. just so glad you're doing it. And one more thing I think I wanted to touch on, because you have this really unique perspective of you're working with the police as well as with the young people. And I think that's really fascinating in the sense that, sometimes there can be a real divide between those young people and the police, and young people will create this sort of an us versus them mentality, I think. So I'm wondering, how have you found sort of healing those relationships and sort of bringing, helping, I guess, each party understand one another?
That's a really good question. I don't know if I have a genuine answer to it, but I can just tell you experiences. I think my role with the police doesn't involve youth at all. So when I work with the police, it's completely separate. But it's so important to create relationships between the police and our young people. I think young people, especially the young people we work with, their perception of police is it's so guided by the media at the moment, and it's so guided by what they see on social media and the content that they put in front of every single day on their devices. Kids are spending all this time on this device, and they're not quite understanding the reality of services that are around them. We have young people that we work with that are from overseas that have had horrible and absolutely terrible experiences with police overseas, and their perception carries over here to Australia as well. For me, I try and engage police in our programs. So whether that's going to a police station, we have police officers that come off duty and provide guest speak on programs, and we have opportunities for young people to engage with police in an ordinary everyday environment. We've never had a negative experience. I think the young people can understand the face behind a uniform when we do this, but also the most powerful part about it is that young people understand what police are there to actually do and the role of what a police officer actually is. We can be swayed so much by what we see on the media and the content that's in front of us every single day. And I can proudly stand up and say here in Tasmania that, I people will say, oh, there needs to be more police officers like you. But I genuinely look at my colleagues and just am in awe of the work that they put in and what they do. They go above and beyond in relation to their work. And when I can introduce young people to that, I mean, for an example, 3 days ago, I had a young boy who's absolutely petrified of the police. He's just started to engage in our program. And I organised a tour of a local police station. I said, well, let's go to the local police station. Let's go and just meet a couple of police officers, walk around. We can have a look at the cars. You can have a look at the cell block. Let's just get a full-blown experience of the whole lot. And he was just like, please, like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I said, well, I'm not going to force you to go. It's completely up to you. And by the end of the day, he sort of bit the bullet and he said, yeah, okay, I'll come. He walked in, he was so nervous when he walked in, and he was just, he's been in the country for about 2 years. He's had 0 interactions with the police here in Australia, but he's constantly bombarded with the police on social media. So things that we see during riots and, it can be so focused in. We left the police station that day, him wanting to be a police officer. He said, this is my goal, is to be a police officer. And we actually probably had about 10 boys that recently graduated. I think 3 of them want to be police officers, and they wouldn't want to have done that at the start of the program. The program's not about creating police officers, and it's not about guiding young people towards that career path. But it's really nice to see that they're able to break down that barrier. There's a massive barrier between the police and young people at the moment, especially, and it's the 4th time I've said it now, but especially because of that social media divide. And I think when people can actually see the work that police do and step into a police station and have that experience of like, well, these people actually are dealing with quite a lot and they're really nice and genuine in the way they go about it. It takes away that 5, 6, 10 second look that they would usually get of a police officer, in a moment of complete chaos, and see that daily life. And yeah, I don't really have an answer as to the, that complete divide and how we fix it. I just know that for our young people, there is a big barrier there, but we slowly chew away at it. And it's not about convincing young people that, these police are, amazing people and they're really, really good. It's just exposing them to these people who are police officers and letting them make their minds up. So, we've had police officers come in our programs and jump in freezing cold rivers here in Tasmania with kids, and we've had police officers give inspirational talks on the way that they've turned their life around and how they ended up with the police. And, they've been really, really supportive of the program, being able to engage with these young people, which is important.
Absolutely. I think you can't really ask more than that. Is just having spaces where you can understand each other's perspective and as human beings trying to do the best they can on either side.
Yep.
And I think also the same goes for the young people themselves in their sort of portrayal in the media. I know Worth a Second Chance started because there was a lot of misrepresentations of young people in the media being painted as thugs and, all kinds of derogatory names. And so for, I think, police officers as well to see a different side of these young people coming out would be really valuable as well. Okay, well, I think we've run out of time. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I think I've learned an incredible amount from you, and I know that our viewers will too. And there's just so much gold in what you have to say. And yeah, thank you for doing the work that you do. I know that you get a lot of reward from it yourself, as you said, a lot of energy from it, but you're changing a lot of lives and it's pretty incredible to see. So thank you so much.
Jess, thank you so much for having me. I do really appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Will. It's been a pleasure.